Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Manifix. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. I've been sort of lacking on content with my channel for like the past year or so, so I decided to do a little bit short term, or I should say shorter form video today. Just kind of showing you guys one of the decks that I play in paper. And I actually do have a deck tech out there on this one. This is Muldrotha and Gygan, well, actually it's Gyruda, Doom of Depths, as my companion. There is a deck tech out there. I'll post the link in the description below. But this is probably one of my favorite decks that I run. So I just wanted to go over it with you and show you guys what it's all about. So the main point of this deck is it's based around enter the battlefield effects. So we want to get Gygan out as fast as we can and then continually use that ability where he says, so when Gyruda enters the battlefield, each player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard. Put a creature card with an even converted mana cost from among those cards onto the battlefield under your control. So we're going to want to blink him in and out of the battlefield as many times as we can to activate that ability and get free creatures. The thing with Companion, many of you will know this has been errated, so now it says we have to pay 3 generic mana at sorcery speed to put this into our hand before we're able to cast it, whereas prior to that change we were just able to cast it from outside the game. Can no longer do that, so it's a little bit slower, but it still works really well, I think. The other thing with this is because Gyruda is our companion, we're forced to use cards with only even converted mana cost. Luckily, we have Muldrotha, which fits perfectly with this. So this is going to be our official commander. It costs 6, so that fits the even converted mana cost requirement, and it's also has blue and black in it, so we can run Gyruda as our companion. And if you don't know what Muldrotha does, it basically makes it so that we can cast one of each permanent type from our graveyard on each of our turns. It's a 6/6 for 6. Incredibly powerful, and this is going to be filling our graveyard up a bunch. So once we get this out, we're going to be able to cast all that stuff from our graveyard that was put there by Gyruda. So that's basically it in a nutshell. Let's go over each of the individual cards here and sort of just kind of stack this based on functions. So we're starting with ramp here, or I'm sorry, we're starting with card draw here. So Elvish Visionary, we've got a lot of stuff like this. So this just enters, when it enters the battlefield, we draw a card. You're going to see later there are a bunch of things that blink creatures. And if Gyruda isn't out, well, hey, then we can blink this, right? So it kind of fits in with the theme. So Elvish Visionary, Wall of Blossoms does the same thing. And so does Baleful Strix. Nice thing about this is it's flying and it has a death touch. So it's a great blocker that makes it so that people don't really want to attack us. Fibblethip, the Lost, he basically does the same thing. We're not going to worry about that first part there. Just when he enters the battlefield, we draw a card. That's what we want. Coiling Oracle, when it enters the battlefield, we reveal the top card of our library. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, that card goes into your hand. So it can ramp us or we can draw a card. And then Notion Thief. So this has Flash for 4. And it basically makes it so that our player, or our opponents, I should say, won't be able to draw any cards except for the first card they draw each turn in their draw step. So it's taking away card draw and giving us a bunch, because instead of them drawing those cards, we get to draw them. Super powerful card. And then we have Gonti, Lord of Luxury. When this enters the battlefield, we get to look at the top 4 cards of an opponent's library, and then basically exile one of them, and then we can play that card whenever we want. Guardian Project is amazing in this deck, so we're going to have a bunch of creatures entering the battlefield all the time, and when that happens, if this is out, we get to draw cards. Prime Speaker Zagana, again, this card is another one that will give us a ton of card draw. It enters with X+1/+1 counters, where X is the greatest power among creatures we control. That'll often be 6 or 6 from Gyruda. And then, so it's going to get 6+1/+1 counters. When it comes down, it's going to be a 7/7, and we're going to draw 7 cards. So this thing can get really disgusting, especially if we're able to repeat that effect. And then we have Jin Gitaxias. I just love Praetors, and this is one obviously at 10 mana. We're gonna wanna find this when we do our Gyruda trigger, right? If this lands in our graveyard on that trigger, we're scooping this up and we're putting it on the battlefield. Pretty gross. If you don't know what this does, it does have flash at your end step. You draw 7 cards and you don't have a maximum hand size. And then it says your opponent's maximum hand sizes are reduced by 7. So if they have a maximum hand size, if they have a reliquary tower, that gets around that. But if they don't, or if they do have a maximum hand size, it's going to be reduced to 0. So they're going to have to discard all their cards at their end step. It's pretty nasty, really powerful, really fun to play. All right, and then let's get into a little bit of the removal here. Hostage Shaker, when it enters the battlefield, we exile an artifact or creature. Pretty self-explanatory. We also can cast that card, so what's nice is we could play this, exile whatever we want to get rid of, cast it, and then when we blink it later, because we cast that card, it's not going to give it back to the opponent, and we'll actually get to exile something else. So that's pretty cool. Ravenous Chupacabra, pretty self-explanatory. When it enters the battlefield, we destroy something. Venser, Shaper Savant. Again, this has flash, and when it enters the battlefield, we return a spell or permanent to its owner's hand. Massacre Worm. This could end up being a one-sided board wipe, especially if we're able to repeat that effect to give all of our opponent's creatures -2/-2 until end of turn. And it's also going to ping them for 2 life for each creature that dies. All right. Again, this is something we're going to want to run into with those Gyruda triggers. This is an 8 mana demon, but ooh, boy, is he good. When he comes into play, we can pay 1 black and 2 life to give a creature -1/-1, so that's repeatable. And this says whenever we lose life, we draw that many cards. So this really says pay 1 black, pay 2 life, draw 2 cards, and give a creature -1/-1. Pretty good. And it's an 8/8 with flying. All right, Cyclonic Rift. Obviously, we're going to run Rift in here. It's 2 mana, so it fits in, and it's a one-sided board wipe. Incredibly powerful card. It'd be silly not to run it. Glenelendra Archmage. This thing is pretty nice to have on the battlefield. So we can pay 1 blue and sacrifice it to counter a non-creature spell. So if somebody's trying to exile our Gyruda, nah, let's sacrifice this and counter that. And then it has Persist, so if we do that, it comes back with a -1/-1 counter on it. And then if we blink this, that counter will go away, and hey, we can sacrifice it again, Persist, it'll come back, and then maybe blink it again, who knows. This thing can stay out there for a long time. Seal of Primordium, so this one is just a Muldrotha staple, I guess I would say. It's a 2 mana enchantment, and you sacrifice it to destroy an artifact or enchantment. With Muldrotha on the battlefield, we could play this from our graveyard every turn and get rid of one thing every turn. So that's why this is in the deck. It's just cheap artifact or enchantment removal, and it's repeatable. Karn's Temporal Sundering. So this allows us to take an extra turn. And, well, it can only be cast if we control a legendary creature, so Muldrotha or Gyruda would do just fine. And then it also allows us to return something to its owner's hand. That could be somebody else's creature, or that could be one of our own if we want to play something again to get its ETB effect. So it's a pretty nice card. Burning Rune Demon. This is... I don't know, I love this card. A lot of people still run Runescarred Demon, but I think this is, I don't want to say strictly better because it's not, but I think it's overall, it's a better card than Runescarred Demon. When it enters the battlefield, we search our library for 2 cards not named Burning Rune Demon, right? Well, there's only 1 copy of it in the deck anyways. And we reveal those cards. An opponent chooses one of them. That card goes into our hand, and then the other one goes into our graveyard. But what's nice about that is we're playing a graveyard deck. So even if they put something in our graveyard, we're likely to be able to get that back anyways. So this is a fantastic tutor. So is Razaketh the Foul-Blooded. So this is another one of those big creatures we're going to want to get out for free if we can. And when we do, holy smokes. So Flying, Trample, 8/8 for 8. Pay 2 life, sacrifice another creature. Search your library for a card and put that card into your hand. So it is a demonic tutor on a stick. Absolutely disgusting. All right, so Rift Sweeper. So the reason this is in the deck is because if Gyruda, Gygan, whatever you want to call it, if this gets exiled, like, we actually have to put it into exile. Companions do not go to the command zone. They don't interact that way with the game. This actually does get exiled. That's why you'll see this sleeve matches the deck, because if this gets shuffled into my library for some reason, it has to blend in. So if this ever gets exiled, Rift Sweeper is here to get it back. Now it shuffles it into our library, but this is the only way, as far as I know, in Commander where we can get a card back from exile. So that's why this is here. Now we have a few spells that are going to help blink our permanents. Gyruda is most likely going to be the target, but it could be any of those other ETB effect creature cards that we have in the deck. Teferi's Time Twist is going to exile it and then return it at the beginning of the next end step, and it gets a +1/+1 counter. We can activate that at instant speed, which is nice. Siren's Ruse is also an instant, and it just immediately exiles it and brings it back. Illusionist Stratagem, so for 4, this is an instant. We can target 2 creatures with this one, and we also get to draw a card. But those aren't the only ways to repeat Gyruda's effect, right? We also have clones. So this is, I know this isn't another language, but this is, it's just called Clone. It's a 4-mana creature. When it enters the it enters the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield. So we just have this come down as Gyruda. Yes, we're forced to sacrifice this, but that's actually a good thing because we get the trigger, and then we can also cast this again later from our graveyard because it dies when it enters because of the legendary rule, which is kind of a cool thing because we're using the legendary rule to our advantage, so it's pretty cool. Same thing with Phantasmal Image. This is just a cheaper version, and if it gets targeted by something, we have to sacrifice it, but like I said, it's going to die anyways when we copy Gyruda, so no big deal. Spark Double. Spark Double actually doesn't die because it gets around the legendary rule. There's text written in there to make that so. It also enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, but again, just something to copy Gyruda. Same thing with Progenitor Mimic. This is going to die when it enters. If we copy something else with it that's not legendary, it will make a copy of that at our upkeep every turn, so that's really powerful if we want to use it for something other than Gyruda. And then Sakashima is another one that gets around the legendary rule because its name remains Sakashima the Imposter, so since it doesn't have the same name as Gyruda, it's going to stick around. And then we can also bounce it back for 4. All right, continuing on here. So Rite of Replication. This has the kicker 5, so if we're able to pay 9 mana into this, we put 5 copies of Gyruda on the battlefield. That gets out of control. This one, we're actually going to want to enchant Gyruda with this aura, because then whenever we attack with it, it puts a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of it, again, activating that trigger. Blade of Selves gives it Myriad, so if we attack an opponent, it creates a copy attacking each other opponent. So if we're in a 4-player game, we're going to get 2 extra copies, means 2 more Gyruda triggers. And then, yes, they all get sacrificed, but we're in it for the triggers. So, Thassa, Deep Dwelling. This is something that blinks one of our creatures at our end step. That could be an Elvish Visionary, or that could be a Gygan. And then Bramble Sovereign. So this is basically when a non-token creature enters, we can pay 2, and then this makes a copy of that creature. So that would also double any ETB effect that creature has. So that's a really nice creature to have on the battlefield. Panharmonicon obviously doubles all our ETB triggers. Whew. And then the granddaddy of ETB, Deadeye Navigator. This guy is going to be able to blink any creature on our battlefield for 2 mana as long as it's soul bonded with that creature. So just a really nice, repeatable blink effect on a stick. Find Finality. So the find part, a lot of these cards in this section here are going to return stuff from our graveyard. That's what that does there. And then Finality is kind of a board wipe, so we get to put 2+1/+1 counters on a creature and then give everything -4/-4. So we'll be able to like save Gyruda or save Muldrotha. Actually, they're not going to die to this either way. Or save another creature and then kill, hopefully, everything else. Reap returns any card, doesn't have to be a creature, it could be anything from our graveyard to our hand, any number, but that number can't be higher than the number of black permanents an opponent controls. So we have to be playing somebody that's playing black. So hopefully in a 4-player game we have at least one person that's doing that. Stitch Together. This card is awesome. So it has threshold, so if we have 7 or more cards in our graveyard, and we most likely will because we're filling it the whole time, instead of returning that creature from our graveyard to our hand, it just goes straight into play. Sorcery speed, but just a super nice card. Animate Dead. This brings something back. It's an aura. If this aura goes away, so does the creature, and vice versa. Creature gets -1/-0. Dance of the Dead, very similar, except that creature enters tapped, and then we have to pay 1 black and 1 other to untap it. It doesn't untap normally. But we don't care. We're just going to use this on Gyruda, usually, or anything with an ETB effect. That's usually why we're playing that. Whoops. Entomber Exarch. So this is also gets a creature from our graveyard to our hand. Or we can choose an opponent and choose a non-creature card from their hand and have them discard. I usually don't do that. It's usually the first one. But Green Warden of Marasa. This one, again, when it enters the battlefield, return a card from our graveyard to our hand, and then it also has the same effect when it dies. Although when it dies, we have to exile it, which kind of stinks, but still a good, repeatable ETB effect. And then, let's see, I'm missing one section here. Where is it? That's weird. We didn't go over the ramp cards. Oh, here they are. Okay. So real quick, let's just go over the ramp here. You're going to notice a lot of 2-mana mana dorks because we can't run Llanowar Elves. We can't run Birds of Paradise, right? Because of the restriction on our companion. So we have to run 2-mana mana dorks. And you might be thinking, oh, that sucks. That means this deck is going to be slow. Well, yeah, in the first couple of turns, but it actually picks up speed pretty quickly after that because, well, a lot of these 2-mana mana dorks have payback. So, like, yeah, it only taps for 1 mana initially, but if we control 4 or more creatures, then it taps for 2, right? So they have added benefits because you're paying more for them than you would a Birds of Paradise, right? So that is that one. Elysian Caryatid. This one taps for 2 mana of any color if we control a creature with power 4 or greater. Incubation Druid taps for 1 mana of any color. If it has a +1/+1 counter on it, though, it taps for 3, and it has Adapt 3, so we can put 3 +1/+1 counters on it to activate that ability. Whisper of the Wilds. This one is similar to another one we just looked at a second ago. It taps for 2 green if we control a creature with power 4 or greater. Voyaging Satyr is going to untap a land. And then, of course, we have Sakura Tribe Elder, obvious staple. Gyre Sage. So we're going to have a ton of creatures entering the battlefield all the time, right? This has evolved, so if any of those creatures have higher power or toughness, this gets a +1/+1 counter, and then it taps for a green, an amount of green equal to the number of counters on it. So this can get really big and end up tapping for a ton of mana. And then we have Talisman of Dominance, Rampant Growth, Farseek. This can get our dual lands if we need them. Same with this one, and that'll enter untapped as well with Nature's Lore. Then we have Explosive Vegetation, Skyshroud Claim. This can also get dual lands. Migration Path. This one's nice. I love that it has cycling on there. So it's a strictly better Explosive Vegetation because you can cycle it away. And then Solemn Simulacrum, of course. Sad Robot. When it enters the battlefield, search for a basic land. When it dies, draw a card. Argothian Elder. This comes in at 4 mana and it untaps 2 lands. And then I think you can tell I like Praetors. Vorinclex. I mean, obviously we're going to have this in here, right? If we can get creatures for free, even converted mana cost, get this out for free, double all of our mana, and make it so that our opponents can't untap their lands. Pretty darn good. All right, so then let's just go over the utility lands real quick. So we're running a couple cycle lands here, Zagoth, Triome, and Fetid Pools. Running a couple Scry lands as well, Temple of Malady and Temple of Deceit. Cavern of Souls is here just so that we can make Gigan uncounterable. So we'll call Demon. We also do have other demons in this deck, so Demon is the best thing to choose for that, just so that they can't be countered. Urborg, I consider this almost strictly better than a swamp, right? Like, it's not strictly better because swamps are basic and this isn't basic. But otherwise, I'd rather draw into Urborg than I would a swamp, right? Because it helps mana fix. So that's why that's there. Temple of the False God. If we control 5 or more lands, taps for 2 mana. And then we just have basic, not basic, but dual lands and then basics there. So that's it. Let me know what you guys think. I just thought it would be cool to kind of show you guys my actual decks rather than, the virtual deck techs that we typically do. So if you like this type of video, please comment and let me know. Or if you hate it, comment and let me know too, so I can get that feedback. But I just wanted to get something out there that was quick and easy to edit, just so that I could have more content on the channel, because I feel bad. Over the past year, I haven't really put out a ton of stuff because I've been kind of busy with my career and everything else that's going on in life. But I hope you guys enjoyed that. As always, thanks for getting your fix with me today. Stay safe out there. Peace out, guys.